Welcome to the Watch List. I'm Lindsay Melchek. As deglobalization shapes supply chains, tungsten is emerging as a critical resource for sectors like defense and artificial intelligence. With China controlling now over 80% of the global supply, the need for diversification has never been more pressing. Joining me today is Sphene Capital analyst Peter Hassler, here to give us some insights into the pivotal market dynamic. Hello, Peter. It's so great to have you here to converse on this topic.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Now, first off, Peter, can you please introduce us to the world of tungsten and where the market currently stands?
Yes, of course. So tungsten this is a Swedish word. It comes from, it's an original, it's called tungsten, which is heavy stone. And tungsten is really a metal of superlatives. It has the highest melting point of all metals. It has great mechanical strength. It does hardly expand, even unlike most other metals, which when they get heated, they increase in size. And it's mostly non-reactive to any other elements. And it is hard. It is almost as hard as diamonds. And all these properties, hardness, density, high wear and high temperature, resistance, give tungsten a number of applications. So whenever a high strength is required, despite high temperatures, so for instance, in the inside of the bulbs or halogen lamps or high temperature furnaces or at the tips of rockets. So maybe Elon has heard of that. And these are niche markets, of course, but there is another application which is not such a niche, and this is the defense because of the strength of the metal. So you could supply tanks with tungsten armor, and this would make them much more safer against attacks. And also another niche market could come in the future would be the inside of the plasma side of nuclear fusion reactors. And so this is a very nice and steady increase in demand we're looking at, which is not the same on the supply side. Because if you go back in time, the worldwide tungsten production came in at approximately 80,000 metric tons per year. But there's one problem. If you look in the past 10 years, as you mentioned it, the vast majority of the tungsten mining and processing came from China. Vietnam ranks second and Russia ranks third. So we have two of the three main suppliers, which are not very well liked by some presidents here in the Western world. So this is why tungsten has been considered to be a critical metal not only by the US government and also by the European Union. So strong demand for critical infrastructure and a dependency from China. This is not what politicians like very much, but investors like. And because if demand supplies exceed supply, we know what happens. The prices go up, and this is what we have had in the last 5 years. If we take this time period, we have an increase. It was in the fourth quarter last year, it was $333 per metric ton, and it came up from $228. So this is a 40-something% increase in the prices, and this is what makes this market from an investor side very attractive.
I mean, tungsten is used in both very niche markets, but also in everyday goods that we, in the Western world or wherever around the world, we don't even realize that that is used as a critical element in whatever that we're using on a daily basis. So, having 80% come of that from China, and now Almonty saying, no, we're going to shift that over and we're going to bring that over away from China. I mean, that is a very bold move. And as an analyst, you have closely examined an array of companies since, we are talking about Almonty. Let's zone in further on that. Now, Lewis Black is someone I sat with recently, the CEO of Almonty Industries, and you've done a ton of research on them. So from your perspective, Peter, what key value drivers should investors anticipate over the next 12 months with Almonty?
Well, normally, if you speak with an explorer analyst or a developer analyst, he's got a really problem, and this is the valuation of this company, because these companies do not produce anything and they don't have revenues, so they only have costs. They have cash burn rates, and you really cannot evaluate any of them so really very well. And Almonty is different. It is not an explorer anymore. It is already a mining company, because they have one asset in Portugal, where they already mine tungsten. But the main driver for the value of the future is their future flagship, called Almonty Korea Tungsten, or AKT. And this will go live or in production in the next year. And this is the main driver, because this will make tungsten the world's leading. Will make Almonty the world's leading tungsten producer in the world. This Korea mine has been the biggest tungsten producer outside of China for many decades, until it was shut down in the 1980s or so, because of the low tungsten prices then. But Almonty managed to get 100% ownership of that mine, and they have done really an excellent job here in since then, because not only they laid hands of the majority of the mine, they also entered into a very interesting engineering, procurement, and construction agreement with POSCO. So they don't even have to care about development works and the facility there, because that's a turnkey contract for the design and construction of all the facilities necessary. They have managed an offtake agreement with Plan C. May have never have heard of Plan C, but this is the world's leading tungsten supplier, having 11,000 employees, 30 production facilities in 50 countries. So this is really where they managed an offtake agreement for approximately half of the production. And they also managed to do the most important thing, and this is financing, because they received senior project finance from German KfW Bank, Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau. And this was a $75 million agreement. And this is normally not what a company in that size, like Almonty, would get from a bank like KfW. And they managed all that, and this in a very short time. And this will be the main, the one key driver for the share of for the next years, probably.
Well, Almonty has also been able to, build the relationship of trust over in South Korea as well, which, that alone is a big accomplishment to have when you're shifting the perspective away from something that's so strong in one area and bringing it over. So the trust and the value there is indefinite for sure. Now, Peter, you have maintained a buy rating on the Almonty stock for quite some time and have repeatedly raised the price target, most recently to 321 Canadian per share. So I really want to target some key sectors of which tungsten is absolutely essential for. Can you explain to the audience what intrinsic value does the company hold for tungsten consumers in the defense sector or manufacturers like Apple, whose products rely heavily on tungsten for production?
Yeah. So the question is Almonty a takeover target? And as I mentioned, valuing explorers or developers is quite complicated, since we don't have any financials. So there's a lot of guessing going on. But as I said, Almonty is different. We have a producing mine in Portugal. We have a project under construction, which is expected to become a producing mine in 2025, so this year. And this one has a lifetime of 90 years, something. And so from this, we could apply the most basic valuation method, which is the discounted cash flow model. So this is a perfect example here for a DCF model. And this is a two-stage DCF model compared to three-stage DCF model, because in 90 years, Almonty is no longer there. because there's no more tungsten then, because they have exploited everything. So this is a difference from if you valued Siemens or some other companies. Here we have an expanded end of life of tungsten. But 90 years, I mean, what the management does today will affect the grandsons of us in 90 years. And this is and from this we will have a very steady and even for a mineral explorer, low risk mining company, if you ask me, because compared to gold, which does not have a value except uh, for um, for rings or gold chains or something, um, tungsten has a value much more proliferant in other sectors. So it's not a one sector thing; it is a many sector thing. Metal, and this is what makes tungsten so attractive, and also from the users, because I mean right now the market cap of Almonty is visible, and but this will definitely change over the next years when they have the proof that they managed to do such a uh, complicated project like the tungsten facility in Korea.
Well, this is going to be a big year for Almonty, and I can't wait to actually hear what comes down their pipeline for sure. Peter, there is so much education around this asset, and I would love to have you back to really take a deeper dive into a more educational piece. I mean, for now, these insights have been beyond valuable. So thank you again for chatting me today.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
Again, that was Peter Tello-Hassler, analysis for Sphene Capital. I encourage you all to join in on this conversation and stay tuned for much more in regards to tungsten, all on stockhouse.com. I'm Lindsay Melchuk. We'll see you next time.